Greetings, this is Renwar 2005 coming to you from WoW TCG Talks. We're going to be continuing our series for rating deck profiles for WoW TCG. Probably the last one we're going to cover in this series is the tank profiles. We've covered healing, control, and DPS, and now it's time for the tank role. Tanks aren't as viable in the WoW TCG as they are in the World of Warcraft online game. They are still very strong, but in terms of control, which that's the form that they play a form of control within the raid. There are better control decks with different classes that aren't specifically tanks. So it's not hard to play tank in WoW TCG. It's just not as viable as some other control decks in the raid content. However, some people just prefer to be a beefy tank over a cloth robe wearing control class. So we're going to go ahead and cover this, and hopefully you'll get some good use out of this. Remember, the deck list will be provided in the description, along with how you can connect with us on Tabletop Simulator and the Reddit page. But let's dive into it. So the first tank we're going to cover today is a gnome warrior named Emmi Sprinklestrike. She's actually not a protection warrior. She's an arms warrior. She's got a very unique flip ability, though. So there's no powers being shown here, but there is if you look at the bottom left, she has an ongoing strike back once she is flipped. She is the only hero in the entire game that can strike back as a static passive effect, which will be very handy with some of the other cards that we're going to be talking about in this deck later on. Just remember that once she's flipped, she has a strike back. It's very effective. It allows you to open up different options in having area effect cards that can hit the board, like Thunderclap or something like that come into play, because every single ally that's going to be striking you as a protector, they're going to be taking strike back damage back. And so in a sense, when you flip her, she's an ongoing area effect, the way this deck works. But first, we're going to cover the card draw in the deck. So our quest is Mystery Goo. You pay 3, reveal the top 5 cards of your deck, put a revealed ability into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your deck. Very similar, we have the Grimtotem Weapon. Also pay 3. Reveal the top 5 cards of your deck, put a revealed equipment into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your deck. And then for an ability card draw, we have Bloody Ritual. As an additional cost to play, you put 4 damage on your hero, but you get to draw 4 cards. That's a very powerful card draw for a tank spec. So when you're raiding as a tank, as you notice, your hero is not just an automatic protector. You must have a static effect or passive effect on your hero that says protector in some fashion. So you can have that through equipment. You can have that through abilities typically. It's rare for you to get it through an ally, and this is not an ally build. This is an ability solo build with some equipment. So we have multiple cards here that's going to give us protector. So we have Stalwart Protector, which has an ongoing, your hero has protector, so 1 cost. Probably your most important protector card is Duty Bound. Your hero is a protector. When your hero protects, ready it. So now you can protect multiple attacks to protect your party members in raids with this ability in play. You also have Guardian's Endurance. Your hero has Protector. Your hero also has +5 health while you can control an equipment. Now what's really cool about this is it can stack. So if you can stack multiple Guardian's Endurance to have up to, I guess if you really had enough, if you got all 4, you could have up to +20 health with this card if you had all 4 out. Typically you'll get 2 throughout the course of your game, which will give you +10 health. And last one is not an ongoing ability, but it is instant. This turn, opposing heroes and allies must attack if able, and can attack only your hero if able. So where this comes in handy is, let's say you've drawn your cards and you just don't have any of your protection ongoing abilities, and you've got to find a way to save your party members from getting destroyed. Challenging Shout is a great way of doing that until you can draw your ongoing protectors. Now we're going to get into some of your control and just fun cards. You have Pummel, instant ability. You may exhaust one of your melee weapons rather than pay Pummel's cost if you want to, and it can interrupt target ability. Now, the fact that a warrior has the ability to interrupt anything is fantastic in a raid, especially if there's other people in your party that have the potential of interrupting, because now you can interrupt less important cards where they don't have to waste it. Like a mage may want to play a counter spell, but they may want to save it for something heavier. Or on the flip side, let's say your control doesn't have it, or you're the only control. It's always nice to have some kind of interrupt in your deck. And lucky for this warrior, there's 2 interrupts. You can interrupt, this is an Absolute Poise, interrupt target ability or equipment. So now you've got options here. One of them potentially can be free, but it only interrupts abilities. The other one is not technically free, but can interrupt ability or equipment. Then you have Puncture, destroy target ally or equipment. That's always handy. A fun little card in here that I've seen this used in many cases, and it's fun when it happens. You may exhaust one of your shields rather than pay spell reflection costs. This ability is called Spell Reflection. It's a 3 cost. It's also instant. If an ability card is targeting only your hero, change its target to its controller's hero. So there's several raid cards that will hit automatically at a target for 10, 15 damage, or even sometimes higher. You can instantly pay for Spell Reflection, but let's say you're even tapped. You can exhaust your shield to pay this cost as well, so you can be free. And you can throw all of that damage right back towards the boss. Excellent card to have in the right scenario. Also, it's a lot of fun when it happens. It gets a good laugh out of the raid. Alright, then you have Champion Stance. So Champion Stance is ongoing. If your hero would deal damage, it deals that much plus 1 instead. And also, if your hero would be dealt damage, prevent 1 of it. It's a good card to have paired with another one that we're going to cover here in a second. And this card's pretty expensive, but you only run 2 in the deck, but it's called Deafening Shout. And when this hits the board, it's a game changer. Opposing allies have -3 attack and -3 health. So if they're allies, let's say it's Molten Core, these allies are getting flipped in from the resource row, their tokens, but they only have 1 or 2 health. They instantly die. They're dead. Or if they do have a lot of health, they come in, being reduced by 3 attack is huge. Big hitting allies are typically like 5 damage or 4 damage, and you're cutting it more than half. So it's a good hard card to have, and it can stack. Oh my gosh, it can stack. It's crazy. So anyway, it's a fun card to have in there, and it can really help out your raid. So now we're going to cover the equipment in the deck. You have a basic equipment here, Girdle of the Queen's Champion. This armor enters play exhausted, but it has 2 armor when it readies. And then the other, probably the most important equipment that you have in here is Azure-Shield of Coldarra. If your hero would be dealt damage, prevent all but 3 of it. So now when this is in play, it pairs well with Duty Bound. So if you've got Duty Bound in play, on top of your shield, you don't even have to exhaust the shield. It doesn't have armor. Okay, it's just going to flat out prevent, which then again would pair well your Spell Reflection, because now your shield is never exhausted to prevent damage. It just automatically prevents damage. So you've got Duty Bound, and let's say there's 5 allies going to be attacking your healer this turn, and you want to protect your healer. Well, Duty Bound gives you Protector. The first ally attacks the healer, you choose to protect, and then you'll prevent all of it but 3 damage. Okay, now you've protected, you re-ready with duty bound because you protected this turn, and you can protect the next ally attack, and you'll prevent all but 3 of it. So now you're taking a lot of damage, or excuse me, you're taking a lot of attackers, but you're not taking a whole lot of damage like a meat shield tank should do in the game. What's really cool with this is if you've got champion stance, you're still preventing it further. Or if your hero is even flipped and you have a static 1 attack, you're striking back at every single one of these attackers while preventing the damage and re-readying. Rock Furrow boots. When an armor you control prevents damage, you may add 1 attack counter to target weapon. This builds up slowly, but it's 3 armor. So if you have these boots out with the shield, you're taking no damage because you're preventing all but 3 damage with the shield, and then you're blocking all 3 of the damage that are still coming through with the Rock Furrow boots. And since it's since it's preventing, your weapon, Quel'Serrar, which gives you +5 health, gains an attack counter because you prevented damage with Rock Furrow boots or even your Girdle. Plus you're striking back with your hero. So over time, your Quel'Serrar, if you're preventing enough damage, which you might be if there's a lot of allies attacking, and you're re-readying every single time you're protecting, your Quel'Serrar, through your Rock Furrow boots, will build up to a pretty high number. I've seen this thing hit for 10 and 15 damage before, on top of what the hero's already striking back for. That's it. This deck is not complicated. It's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. It can destroy equipment. It can interrupt abilities or equipment. It can spell reflect. It prevents damage. You're protecting. The only thing that you're really not doing is if a raid boss is doing unpreventable damage, you're not going to be as effective. So if a card comes out and it says raid allies or raid boss is doing X unpreventable damage, you're going to take a lot of hits and you're not going to be able to really mitigate it. So that is a weakness of the deck, but to be fair, those cards in raiding are few and far between. An exception would be Unyielding Pain in Naxxramas. It's an ongoing ability that the raid can have that they can use to tap and buff the raid boss to do unpreventable damage. However, that can be destroyed. So you have ways around it. One of the biggest things I've noticed from people who have piloted this deck in my local group is that once they have their duty bound, their shield up, and they have their interrupts to protect them from getting destroyed, they typically just sit there and take damage. They're not really interacting from their hand. All they're really doing is tapping a few cards and not taking a whole lot of damage, and they're waiting for their Quel'Serrar to build up over 4 to 5 turns. Okay, and so they're really just sitting there and they're letting everyone else play, and they're taking all this heat. If that is interesting to you, great. For me, it's not really my playstyle. This isn't my deck. This is one of my local players who designed this, and I think it's pretty good. There's a lot of synergy here. It's just I find this deck over a 2 to 3 hour raid to be quite boring because there's not enough cards leaving your hand. You're just not interacting very much other than with these 2 cards, Duty Bound and your Azure-Shield of Coldarra. That's my personal preference. However, I cannot decide that the deck design of this deck is quite strong, especially for raiding. Alright, so I'm going to give you a different option now. We're going to look at more of an off-tank. And for me, it's quite the extreme, because this is my favorite deck. It is a feral bear form. It is not as strong as the deck you just saw in terms of preventing damage. It can still control quite well, but it can hit more frequently and harder. So let's just dive into this deck. So our hero, I cannot pronounce that first name, but it's Stonehoof. is his last. He is a feral build, and his flip ability gives 40 health. So you go from 28 health. When you flip him, you go to 40 instant, or on turn 5, if that's when you want to do it. We're going to build upon this a little bit later. This deck technically can get up to 80 health, which is crazy. But we're going to get into some card draw quickly here. We have Forces of Jadenar. For whenever we play an ability, we pay 1 to complete this quest, and we can draw a card. More on the control factor, we have Eye of the Storm. When you play a card, add an honor counter. You can tap, remove 4 honor counters, exhaust up to 4 target heroes and or allies. This builds up rather quickly because I'm actually going to be reducing the cost of the abilities, so I'm playing more than one. I'm going to jump down to one ability that is on card draw base. So there's not a whole lot of quest in this deck. However, there is great card draw, and where the card draw is coming from is Berserker. So Berserker, while your hero has bear form, when it's dealt combat damage, you may draw a card. While your hero has cat form, when it deals combat damage to a hero, its controller discards a card. Now, we can go cat form into this deck, but 90% of the time we are in bear form. So let me give you a scenario. We're going to look at Ursark's Fury. So Ursark's Fury is an instant ability. You pay 1, you can tap it, and you can ready your hero. So bear form has a static effect. Your bear form means has Protector. Destroy this card when you strike with a weapon or play a non-feral ability. So that's very similar to how it works in the online game too. So bear form is the key thing here. So while we're in bear form, we have Protector. So let's say there's 5 allies that the raid has, and you're the designated target. Each ally, when it swings into your hero, deals combat damage. So if you take 5 hits from allies that turn, on your opponent's turn, you just drew 5 cards. And you can play this card instantly to surprise them when it's coming. It's a fantastic card. It really beefs up the card draw ramp. So because of this card, you don't need a lot of quest or other card draw types. As long as you have a Berserk and you can stack it, you can get double effect from it. There's a lot of card draws. Typically, later in the game, you're having to discard cards from your hand because you're drawing so much from Berserk. Because you can also, if the raid doesn't want you drawing cards, you can still be a protector and protect and draw some cards. Alright, so let's get into the different kinds of bear forms that this deck has. So we already covered Ursark's Fury. So you can protect with Ursark's Fury, and then after you've protected, if you want, you can pay 1, tap the ability, and you can re-ready, and you can protect twice. Now, this is different than your other deck that we looked at with the Gnome Warrior, because it can protect infinitely as long as Duty Bound's in play. This deck can protect up to twice with Ursark's Fury. Typically, you're only protecting once, and you're only really protecting the one big attack that might be coming at your healer or your control, or even a DPS. Master's Instinct. Your hero is in bear form, and again, bear form gives Protector. It's also instant, but you can tap this card. This turn, your hero loses bear form and is in cat form while your hero controls Master's Instinct. So you can tap this on anybody's turn, your opponent's, yours, whenever, but there's no reason to tap this card on anyone else's turn other than your own. So the way you use this card is on your turn, you're not protecting. There's not really any threat coming on the next opponent's turn. You can go ahead and tap Master's Instinct, turn into cat form, and what cat form does is it gives you 1 attack on your turn. Well, if you've got Berserk out, you can go ahead and attack in cat form on your turn, and your opponent will have to discard a card. And in raids, discarding cards from a raid has a huge impact on the game. you never know what they're going to discard, and most time raids have extremely strong cards. So just discarding one of those bad cards is a good thing. Alright, your other bear form is Bash. Exhaust target hero or ally. Your hero has bear form. Again, you have Protector, but it's all the different forms are instant, so you can play them on your opponent's turn so they can't see it coming. Alright, this last card is not necessarily a bear form, but it's also not really a control card. But it's a preparation card. Now, preparation cards are unique. They do have a cost. So this card has a cost of 3 to play. However, it has preparation. What it does is on your first turn, you may play this card without paying its cost. So if you have it in your opening hand, you can play it for free. Now, its secondary effect, you pay 1 less to play feral abilities to a minimum of 1. Now, most of our feral abilities are not expensive. I think the most expensive one is 3. Most of them are 2 cost. So you don't really need more than 1 of these in your hand. Right, so if you have it in your opening hand, play it for free. If you see another one later on, realistically, you can resource it. You don't need a second one unless you really want to have the card out and play. Alright, so now let's look into some of the abilities of this bear. So you have predatory strikes. While your hero is in bear form or cat form, it has +2 attack while attacking. Now this ability can stack, so it's throughout the course of a raid you're going to have multiple stacks of this card. Next is Wild Swipes. Your hero has 2 assault while you control a form. So again, it's the same effect as predatory strikes. It's just 1 cost higher. Now, some people who have experience playing this game may tell me, well, why aren't you using Blood in the Water? It's a 2-drop, and what it does is every time your hero does combat damage, you gain an assault counter. So throughout the course of a raid, that counter can get very high and can hit a lot harder than Wild Swipes can. But what Wild Swipes does versus Blood in the Water is I have that Assault 2 instantly on the turn I want to swing it with it. Okay? Blood in the Water has no counters to start with. So you have to swing with something first with predatory strikes or cat form just to trigger it. So it takes Blood in the Water 2 to even 3 turns before you can even outpace Wild Swipes. And there's another card we're going to show later that it's once you get that deep into the card sequence, Blood in the Water becomes irrelevant. So that's my argument there real quick. We've already covered Berserk pretty well. Chew Toy. If you control a form, destroy target ally. This is huge. If you're playing against an automated raid and they throw out a big boss guy, you just throw down Chew Toy and it's gone. Or if they're throwing down a big ally that's a token from a boss coming into play, you just eliminate it. It's a great control card, cheap card to have as well. Something they don't see coming is Feral Charge, and this is your interrupt. Play only if your hero is in bear form. Interrupt target card. Notice it says target card and not ability. So you can interrupt almost any card, aside from resources. But if they want to play a big ally, a piece of equipment that's going to change the outcome of the game, or a really detrimental ability card, you can interrupt it all. It's a great card to have. Heart of the Wild. This is how we can get up to 80 health. Your hero has +10 health while in bear form. Your hero has +2 attack while attacking in cat form. So now you've buffed your attack with predatory strikes, wild swipes, and Heart of the Wild. Now if you're in bear form, you're just adding on to what your hero's 40 health is. So just the fact that you can reach 50 health with this deck is absurd. Okay, I consistently hit 60 health with this deck in raiding. I have hit 80. It's rare, but it can happen. Alright, so let's cover some of the equipment and one control card. Boots of the Whirling Mist. If you're a Druid, You may tap this card, remove your hero from combat. So you can choose to protect with bear form. You can then exhaust Swirling Mist. The attack's coming at you, and you just remove yourself from combat. So now you're protecting without even taking damage. Alright, Cover of Silence. This is actually an important card that's paired with the other one we haven't covered just yet. Your hero has stealth. Opponents can't play cards on your turn. Now, in a raid, taking the opponent's ability away from playing cards on your turn is huge. So let's say you're going to play a big card, or even in a bear form, or a card draw. Let's say you're going to play Berserk, and they know how Berserk works, and they don't want you drawing all those cards, and they want to interrupt your Berserk before it enters play. If you've got Cover and Silence out, they cannot interrupt you ever on your turn. They can only interrupt you when you're trying to play instances on their turn. So it protects you from those interrupts and those instant destroys. If they see you play something big and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to destroy that now. They can't. It's great. All right, so I'm going to jump ahead real quick because it pairs with Cover of Silence. But we have Troll Woven Spauldrons. Now there's a lot that kind of goes into this card. But at the start of your turn, your hero has Berserking and Conspicuous this turn. Now let me break down what these keywords are. What Berserking means is you have Assault this turn for how much damage is on your hero. So if you've got 10 damage on your hero at the start of your turn, Berserking is going to give you 10 Assault. Okay. Now, the downside of this is Conspicuous. Conspicuous makes it to where anything can protect against you. It basically, if he's got a bunch of allies in front of his hero, you just basically with Conspicuous gave every single ally he has Protector. All right. So that's the downside. So because Berserker can get up pretty high, so they have to find a way to balance that card, and Conspicuous is the way that they do it. Well, if you have Cover of Silence, you have Stealth, and Stealth allows you to strike beyond protectors. You can go through protectors to strike your intended target with Stealth. So even though you have Conspicuous, their Conspicuous protectors cannot stop you because you have Stealth. Alright. Next one is the Oathbinder, Charge of the Ranger General. At the start of your turn, your hero deals 1 nature damage to target hero for each ability, ally, and equipment you control. If you notice, everything that you're playing is either equipment or abilities. And you're playing a lot, and they're stacking. A lot of them are ongoing. On average, around turn 6, 7 in a raid, you're doing about 8 to 9 damage at the start of your turn, and it just gets worse the more it goes on. It's just this big dot. You're never swinging with it. If you actually paid the strike costs with this deck to do 1 damage, you would actually destroy your bear form. Because the description of bear form is, has Protector, destroy this card when you strike with a weapon or play a non-feral ability. Now, if you notice, every single ability we're playing is a feral ability. Except Hurricane. Why am I playing Hurricane in this deck? I'm going to go into a little bit of depth of why we play Hurricane in this deck. So what Hurricane does is this ability enters play with 2 win counters. And notice it is a balance ability, not a feral. So as soon as we play this card, it's destroying our bear form, which everything we use is utilizing the form, either a form or bear form specifically. So losing bear form is not a good thing. So why play Hurricane? Well, when it comes into play, opposing heroes and allies can't attack or protect. That's important. Remember, or protect. We're going to come back to that. At the start of your turn, your hero deals 2 nature damage to each opposing hero and ally. Then remove a win counter. If none remain, destroy this ability. So when you play Hurricane, you're telling the raid you're not attacking for 2 turns. And while you're waiting for 2 turns, you're going to take up to 4 damage because I'm doing area effect damage. Now, you will lose your bear form when you play it. However, typically when you play Hurricane, you want to have a bear form waiting in your hand to play immediately after your Hurricane. And you have up to 10 bear forms in this 60 card deck. So you will likely have another bear form waiting after you play your Hurricane. Now, what's also great is, let's say that you don't have Cover of Silence in play, but you've played your Trollwoven Spauldrons, and you want to be able to get through the conspicuous protectors that you've created. If you play Hurricane, they cannot protect. You can still strike through them with Hurricane instead of Cover of Silence. Now, one of the interesting things about this deck is it's been play tested enough that it's designed to be able to win without a bear form. So a good player will notice that there's a lot of feral based cards that require form. So if a good raid boss is looking at your deck, they're like, well, all I have to do is destroy a bear form. So I'm gonna Jagged Knife from Naxxramas, and I'm gonna destroy your Master's Instinct. So now you don't have bear form anymore. You still have your flip. It doesn't give you bear form, but you're getting extra health. So you would lose the effect of Heart of the Wild, but you still have a lot of health from your hero flip. Now on top of that, excuse me, I've lost track. On top of that, you still have your Oathbinder, and you still have your Trollwoven Spauldrons, and you've been taking damage through the raid. Trollwoven Spauldrons and the Oathbinder do not require a bear form to do damage. So if your bear form gets destroyed, it's okay, because you can still get around the stealth with Hurricane, Trollwoven Spauldrons, and you can still do constant damage with Oathbinder. I've had up to 20 plus damage on this deck, and I've swung with Trollwoven Spauldrons without a bear form for more than 20 damage, just from the straight assault that this gives me through Berserking. So you do not have to have bear form to be able to deal damage with this deck. Now you have to obviously have bear form to be the protector that your raid may need, but that's why this is considered an off tank, because you're not stopping all the damage. You are controlling some of the cards, you are taking some of the damage, but you're also hitting a lot harder and a lot more consistent. So anyway, those are the 2 deck designs that I wanted to share with you guys today. I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed talking about it. I haven't done one of these in about a month, so I'm sorry about that for you new subscribers that have come on. But now we've covered healing, control, DPS, and tank. So likely what my next video will be, when I get some time after Christmas, I may start covering either tactics in a raid on how to pilot a deck correctly and the choices you make, or I may cover more a certain raid, so like Molten Core, and go kind of card by card and how those cards will affect you and how you can get around it and overcome it. I haven't decided which yet, but I need to make a video on how to build a deck in Tabletop Simulator. There's been some people who've been having a tough time learning how to deck design, uploading a deck to Tabletop Simulator. So something like that will be coming, but as far as this series is concerned, the deck profile series for now is done for rating. I may cover more PvP stuff later at a later date, but for right now, that's it for the rating deck profiles. Again, the descriptions for all the deck lists will be in the description below. So if you want to copy and use these decks for your own, go ahead and do it. But have fun, guys. Keep playing, and we'll talk to you soon.